Hey, hello. Welcome to episode number 29 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choit. Sup, y'all? So this week's something that I love is tennis ball in a sock massages. I don't know if you ever done this before, but basically what I do is I put a tennis ball in a sock and I use it to give myself back massages. I do this up against a wall, but I know some people do it laying on the floor as well. I didn't invent this, so I'm not going to take credit for it. I think I found this on YouTube, but it's pretty good, and you can really target your knots in your back and middle back, upper back, shoulders, some neck in there, whatever, wherever you might have tightness. So I highly recommend trying this. Anyway, real quickly, my website is peoplewelovepodcast.com. Everything you need is on there. Please tap subscribe or follow on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. 5-star reviews on iTunes are helpful. And there's a private Facebook group called the People We Love Podcast Group. And once again, that website is peoplewelovepodcast.com. That's enough of that. So today's guest is actor, writer, singer, songwriter, Karen Roberts. Now, my chat with Karen was quite an epic one. So what I've decided to do is only put out the second part of our conversation, which was pretty epic in itself. That is the part where she tells the crazy, fun, will they, won't they, twisting, magical, romantic, and tragic tale between herself and her bandmate, saxophone player, the late Scott Schipper, who had cancer take him away from this world way, way too soon. These two souls loved each other until the very end. So, here's what I'm thinking. Perhaps down the road, maybe within the next couple of weeks, I'll release the first part of my conversation with Karen Roberts, perhaps as like a midweek bonus episode or something like that. For now, though, I'm just going to summarize the first part of our conversation and give some more context for what you're about to hear in this episode. So, let's see if I can do this. I'm going to try to move fast and get to the interview itself, so pay attention. Karen Roberts was born and raised in Long Beach, California, and currently lives there as well. She gets road rage, but more on the side streets than on the freeways. She was an awkward teen who got bullied, like most of my podcast guests, apparently. And Karen wasn't a fan of going to an all-girls Catholic school and became less and less a fan of Catholicism in general as she grew up. She always wanted to act and be a performer, but again, when she got bullied and one classmate in 6th grade said she was bad at acting, she quit acting. But later on, though, she and some friends started a pop punk band, and Karen picked up the bass guitar, although she wasn't very good at it. So eventually Karen started a new band, this one a ska band, called Chase Long Beach. Realizing she's better at singing than playing bass, and with her bandmates realizing the same, Karen became the lead singer. And from there, things started to happen. Chase Long Beach was getting bigger and bigger gigs at the Knitting Factory in Hollywood, at the Key Club, all over California and beyond. And Karen was falling in love with the ska scene itself too, which she talks about as being really very accepting of everyone. And then one night, while attending a Real Big Fish show, the lead singer of that band, Aaron Barrett, was looking for a person from the audience to come up on stage and sing a song with the band. Everyone surrounding Karen near the stage started pointing at her. Well, one thing led to another, and Karen got up there and sang, danced, and bantered with Aaron Barrett and Real Big Fish. What an amazing moment that was for her. After the show, Aaron Barrett even wanted to meet Karen. And, wait till you hear this. What happened next, Aaron Barrett went on to produce Chase Long Beach's full-length album, and a tour with Chase Long Beach opening for Real Big Fish came next. Right after recording that album, though, that's when Karen's bass player started hounding her for months and months to add a saxophone player to the band. Karen was resistant to adding a sax and more horns to the band. So, this is where my conversation with Karen Roberts shall begin, when Karen first met saxophone player Scott Schipper. Let's just dive into this amazing story. Here's Karen Roberts.
Okay, so we record the album. Right after we record the album, for months, my bass player, maybe like 2 months, my bass player's been like, I want to get a saxophone player or a keyboardist. And personally, I'm not a big fan of sax sound. I'm not a big fan of saxophone. And, but we already at the time, I think, had 7 or 8 members in the band. I think it was 8.
And you had a trumpet and...
We had 2 trumpets and a trombone.
Gotcha.
And then I think we had a second... No, Russell wasn't in the band anymore. Okay, so yeah, there was 7 of us. And, wait, is that math right?
I don't know.
Yes, 7. Yes. Yeah. There were 7 of us. I'm like, dude, we don't need anyone else in the band. We have a full, horn section. We don't need. And he was like, all right. So I would keep telling him this. He'd bring it up. I'd keep, no. Keep telling him this. No. This went on for like a month or two. And then we go to have a photo shoot. Our bass player's like, okay, we're going to have a photo shoot at Megan, our trumpet player's apartment. Like, everybody meet this day, wear this, blah, blah, blah. We need to get some new promo photos. So, all right. And then I show up and the band's there and the photographer's there. And then there's this other guy. And my first thought is like, who is this really handsome guy?
Photographer's assistant.
Who shouldn't be, like, I'm like, this person isn't, but they're like dressed in the same clothes that we're fucking dressed in, that he told us to dress in. And then my bass player, he comes up, he sees me and he walks up to me right away and he goes, Karen, I want you to meet our new sax player, Scott. And I was like,
fuming.
I'm fuming because he fucking did it anyway. Without anybody else's permission. He went and auditioned him by him fucking self and then added him to the band without telling any of us because he knew I was going to be mad because I didn't approve of it. And then like I have to pretend like, so I'm like pissed, but I'm like meeting this person for the first time. And
so
like,
awkward.
Yeah, and at the time too, like this person who's not supposed to be there, who's just been thrown into our lives.
It's not his fault per se.
And it wasn't his fault,
Yeah.
but of course at the time, like I'm pissed at Pat, my bass player, but I'm also pissed at this guy. I'm like,
for existing.
yeah. And so like honestly, like the first month, a month, maybe 2 months of Scott being in the band, we hardly even spoke because I was so angry about it.
Did he know that he must?
Nah, I don't think he did, honestly.
But he must have sensed
He
something.
was a pretty oblivious guy sometimes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he just kind of lived in his own world sometimes. So,
yeah, he just playing his sax. He's like, I'm here to play
yeah,
sax.
he
I'm
didn't
not
care.
worried
He
about.
was hired
Yeah, I'm
to
not
be
worried.
in this band.
I don't care about people's feelings. I'm
No.
just here to play music.
Yeah. And so I want to say it was probably about a month after him being in the band that finally we started having conversation. And I remember we were leaving band practice and I don't remember how it got brought up, but I remember my brother was there too, because my brother was our tour manager for a long time, and he had ridden with me to band practice. So he was like standing there waiting. And I remember him starting to get annoyed because we were just like talking forever, because his favorite band was Less Than Jake. And that's one of my favorite bands. And like most of the other people in my band didn't care for them as much as I
Oh, we
did.
got a connection here.
So we were like, I was like, oh, dude, you're into Less Than Jake. Well, I'm into Less Than Jake.
So what happens when you talk to each other?
Right.
This was a month after.
Yeah, this is like a month after. Like
Yeah.
literally, I was just like giving him like the fucking silent treatment. I'd like see him at rehearsal, see him like wherever, and I was just like, yeah, hey, you're that guy who's not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And then so then it was like, okay, like a bond was starting to form. And it was still just like, whatever, like we're just friends, like we're in a band together, nothing. And then so this was right after our first tour and that album. And then the second tour we ever did was our first UK tour. So he came on that with us too. And we were just kind of like friends, like we just kind of kept our distance, like we would have like little conversations. And then after that, a couple months later, because that was in fall of 2007, right? Oh my God, my timeline. Yeah, fall of 2007. And then in March of 2008 was when we did the Real Big Fish tour. And he was, on that too. And I even remember like on that tour, like he would get like annoyed with me because like I was being like crazy and irrational, and I definitely was. Like I definitely was fucking nuts.
You were crazy,
Crazy and irrational.
Crazy and
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
On the tour?
Yeah.
In what way?
I don't know. Like honestly, I had been on birth control for many, many, many years, and I just finally got off of it a few months ago, and I'm like, oh, all those years I was fucking nuts, and like you don't realize it until then. But like I don't know, I just like I had a lot of like my own issues, like anxiety, like depression, stuff I was dealing with, and I just did not process things well, where I was like awful, like I was like crazy, like I'd like lock myself in the bathroom.
No, you are the
like,
difficult lead singer.
yeah, I definitely was. I'm not as much anymore. I'm much better. But anyway, so it was really after that we came back, and I remember I I actually had a crush on our guitarist. It was funny. And he was like, nah, dude. Like, nah.
You put it out there?
I did.
You put it out there.
Yeah, I did. And
live with no regrets.
Yeah, and it was super funny because then I'd have to like see him all the time. This is so funny. I don't think I've ever talked about that. But then the next tour we went on was our second UK tour. And that was when Scott and I really started bonding. And that was when I knew it was happening. Like I was falling for him. Yeah. And I could feel that he was too. And it was like this funny thing where like we would be with people that we would only, you know, like spend the day with. Like we would like stay at their house or whatever. And they'd be like, are you guys dating? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
No. You know, like that thing was like, ew, no.
Just finishing each other's sentences.
No. But like it was like we would like finish each other's sentences, but then we would also have like the old married couple like banter, like argue, like kind of shit. And people were like, oh, it really seems like you guys are together. And we would like do everything together. And then it would be like he would always come and sleep. I would always get a bed, right? Like no matter where we stayed, if there was one bed, I would get the bed.
The queen.
And that wasn't even my choice. Like I was always like, no. I'll like go, you know, like we can take turns. But my bass player was really insistent that I got the bed.
Well, they didn't want to upset you.
No, it was more so because if I got sick, I was fucked. If anybody else got sick,
the show could go
still go. But like if I get sick, which I definitely did many, many times, you know, I mean, like you're trying to sing and you've got the flu and you can't even stand up.
Damn.
You know, like it's not fun, but like you have to keep going. Like you can't cancel a show. Like I've literally played a show and then gone to the hospital afterwards.
That's nuts.
I was on the Real Big Fish tour, actually. I did that.
Bring the IV right out to the stage.
Yeah, right? But except those fucking assholes, I'll never forget it. They went and stopped at fucking In-N-Out before taking me to the fucking hospital. Anyway, whole nother story.
How long was the line?
It was long. It was fucking In-N-Out. Of course it was long. We were waiting for like 30 minutes and I was like, can you guys get In-N-Out after you drop me off at the hospital? Like maybe. Anyway.
I think you should have been more understanding.
Yeah, I know.
People are hungry after a show.
I'm the rude person, right? But but it was on that tour, and that was hands down my favorite tour that we ever did because there was something like really magical that happened behind the scenes too. Not only and there was this whole thing too where
You're talking about you and him.
Yeah. And it was like the first time like I really felt like I had somebody there, you know, like me and my female trumpet player, like we had our bond because we were like the only girls and we always looked out for each other. We were like the sisters. But everybody else, like, I never really, like, it's like, yeah, you'd, like, chat with people in your band. You'd, like, hang out with this person. You do this with this person, whatever. But, like, this is, like, the first time that you really had someone. Because it's really hard being on the road.
Sure.
You know, like, you're missing so many things from back home. And you have such a loss of comfort level. And, like, a comfort zone, you know? That when you have somebody like that or like that kind of connection where you're like, I don't know, it's like a safety net.
I got you.
I guess in a sense, yeah.
You're traveling with a comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like, so I would always get the bed and this started on this tour. He was like, oh, I'm gonna come sleep in the bed with you.
Oh.
You know, and it was like some nights I was like, fuck you, just because I'm the only one who got the fucking bed and you like just wanna like sleep in the bed because you wanna sleep in a bed. I was like, no. And, but then there were nights where like there were multiple beds and he would still come and share it. And like one of my favorite things.
You're piecing it together now.
Mm-hmm. And then like one of my favorite things too was we stayed at this house for a couple nights and I had like the only bed and it was a twin. So he couldn't fit in it. But he still came like knocking on the door and he like pulled his sleeping bag out and like laid it next to the bed.
Look at this guy.
Next to me, even though there was like tons of other room in the room. Like it was a really big room. I always thought that was so weird. It was so funny to me because I still picture the room because it was a huge room with this tiny bed in it. It was like so obscure. But yeah, like he
probably
brought
a kid's
his sleeping
room
bag.
or something.
I think it was. Yeah. But they didn't have any kids. That was the weird
Well,
part.
maybe
like,
they used
to. Grown kid. Yeah, because it was the son who had like brought us back, and his mom, her house, but he was like in his 20s. But I don't know. But so it was like things like that.
Yeah, he wanted to be near you, with you.
Yeah. And
next to you.
Yeah. And then it was like we got back from the UK, and it was kind of like this weird thing too, where you're like, well, you're on tour, so you don't know what's going to happen when you come back. Like this is like a different world, and we're not just like on tour in America, like you're in a different country too. Everything's foreign. So you're like, okay, like what's going to happen when we come back? And we come back, and literally the next day he's like, what are you doing? I'm coming over. Like, let's hang out. And I was just like, all right. Because at the time too, I was still living with my mom, and he was staying with friends who lived literally like 2 blocks over from my mom's. So he was like really convenient, wasn't doing anything. And we only had, I think, like a week or 2 weeks off in between our next tour, because we were doing the UK, which we were on that one for, I think it was the longest tour we did, 5.5, 6 weeks. And then we came back and had to do an American tour, but we had, I think it was only a week and a half off in between the two of them. And then that was another month.
Where was that tour?
It was like West Coast, South.
Gotcha.
Mostly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We didn't hit the East Coast and there were like, I think a couple of more like Midwest states. But it was kind of like up and back around. I just drew that you can't see, of course. I always love doing that.
Yeah. She drew a cross.
I just drew a cross. I just did the sign of the cross.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so we were like hanging out like all this time. It's like nonstop. And then there were like weird moments, too, where it was like, because nothing had happened. Like we still hadn't like kissed. We hadn't done anything, but it was just like these weird moments where like things would happen. And we were starting to bond too. This was another big thing that brought us together in the UK, because this all comes back around. There was this book that he had. It was called The Tibetan Art of Positive Thinking. And I was going through like all these anxiety issues. So like, and I'd never tried meditation before. And he like gave me this book. He was like, oh, you borrow it, like it changed my life. Like it'll change yours. Like try meditating, whatever. So like that was the thing. And then I started like feeling much better, like overall too. So that was another part of like the tour. Like I was meditating and I was feeling really good. So I was like having an amazing time on this tour.
It's probably good for everyone around you.
Yeah, exactly. And then bonding with him. But so we come back, whatever, we're hanging out. And then we play this show right before we leave for the American tour at this local venue in Long Beach called D Piazza's, where we kind of got our start. And a lot of local bands do. And he shows up with his fucking ex-girlfriend, who was one of my friends. Like this girl was the friend of our friends that he had met her through us.
As a date kind of to the show?
He brought her to the show.
What the hell, man?
And I was like crushed, but had to like pretend that I wasn't.
Because you're not anything, but you felt like something was developing.
And it's like undeniable on his side too.
Right.
Like this is so dumb. Like you're spending all this, like time with me. There's like all these like weird flirtations and like things.
Well, someone's got to make a move.
So he like brings this girl, and I remember we ended up having an after party back at my mom's house that night, and like he brought her back, and I was like,
what the fuck,
dying.
Yeah.
I'm like dying at my mom's house. We're with
better leave her on the porch.
Our other band, like our other friend's band that we were playing with that night. Like everybody came back. We're like getting stoned, and like I just remember like, I'm just like crushed inside, whatever. And then so we leave like the next day or the day after. And I've got like this like weird animosity towards him now too.
Of course,
with, like all these like feelings too. And
I bet.
And so we're like on tour, and then I'm like acting crazy again. And I remember, so when finally something kind of starts to happen, so things were kind of weird, and like I was like trying not to, like he was still like trying to sleep in like bed with me, and like some nights I would allow it. And I remember like one night I was like mad at him for something, I don't even remember why, but like I I locked the door. Oh, no. I remember I was like meditating and he came in and he like came knocking to try and come in. And I was like, yeah. And he like came in and was like trying to like talk to me, like trying to like get in the bed. And I was like, no, I'm going to go to sleep night, and like made him leave.
Yeah.
And then I woke up the next morning in his sleeping bag. He was sleeping in his sleeping bag outside the door.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I think he knew he done wrong.
Yeah. And so one night, this was, I want to say like probably like 5 days into the tour, like somewhere around a week, our van broke down in Texas in the middle of summer, which is always a fun time. And the shop, like when it had happened, it was like 5 p.m. and the shop was like just closing and they were like, we can't do anything right now, but you can leave it here overnight. And we know you guys are like here. They were like, we don't care. You can sleep in the van in front of the shop and we will work on it first thing tomorrow morning when we get in. We're like, all right. So we just end up staying outside of the shop. And Scott and I did all these other like funny.
So the whole band slept in a van?
Yeah.
8 people? Was there enough room? How does that even?
There were actually only 6 musicians on that tour because Megan wasn't on that tour. We met up with her and she played like one show with us because she was like, something weird was happening with her family. I remember she was like in Reno.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she met up at our Reno show and like played that with us. But then that was it. So there were 6 of us, but then we still had the tour manager and I think a merch person. So yeah, I think there were still like 8 people. And I remember actually Scott slept on the roof of the van that night and he woke up the next morning and he was so sunburned. And he had gotten bitten. It was so funny. But so we did like all these weird things. Like he wanted, like he would like come over and like he wanted like me to cut his hair and stuff like that. Like I would do all these like weird things. But like one of the weird things we would do is that he wanted me to pluck his eyebrows. Like he always liked me plucking his eyebrows for him. Just like not like pluck, but like
Clean them up
a little bit. And so this happened that night that we're in Texas and with the van. And he was like, oh, come pluck my eyebrows. And like, I'm drunk. Like we went and like got like beer.
That's what you want to do when you're drunk is pluck eyebrows.
Pluck eyebrows. Perfect. And I'm stoned and I'm like, okay, this is it. Like I need to like try and make a move. Like I should just try and kiss him. Like I should just try and kiss him.
Yeah, that sounds like the right move to me.
Yeah. And then I was like, but like, I don't know if the band's watching because we're like not that far away, and then so I like pussied out, and I didn't do it. So, but the next day I send him a text message while we're all in the van together saying like, I was going to kiss you last night, but I like chickened out, blah, blah, blah. And then he responds, he was like, I'm glad you didn't. You shouldn't do that. We can't do that.
Wow.
We're in a band together.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh.
Wow.
Shamed. Okay, fine. I'm glad that I saved myself from that embarrassment then of throwing myself at you.
Wow.
And it's just like weird. We're on this tour together and like we're trying to pretend like whatever. And we're like trying to keep our distance now from each other. And then I start doing crazy things again because like, whatever.
It's a little dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Or at least very mixed emotions, confusing emotions. I'm sure on his end too.
Yeah. And then like after a couple of days, it like calms down a little bit and we like go back on being, best friends, whatever. I was like, okay, well, it is what it is. At least I have like this bond with this person.
Right.
Like, okay, if it's not going to be romantic, then it's not going to be romantic. So I just like tried to like knock that out of my head. I was like, okay, well, it's not going to happen then. And then so we get back and again, the next day after we're back, not even the next day, because we came back early in the morning. I remember we drove all night and we got home in the morning and then like we all went to sleep for a few hours. And then he's like, hey, I'm coming over. Like we've been with each other every day for months now. And you still want to come over the same fucking day we get back. And shortly after that, I had to get an endoscopy. There's just like a lot of stomach problems that run in my family. So I had my, I had to get an endoscopy and a colonoscopy. This was the second endoscopy I had, but the first colonoscopy at 19. And there's like a bunch of lovely prep
I bet.
happens, for that.
Oh, man.
So the day before, I'm just like, dying. You can't leave far. Like, so I was just at my mom's house all day, and he like insisted on coming over. And I just remember we were all like smoking a joint. It was like me, my mom, Scott, and I don't know if my brother was there, but we're like smoking a joint. And I remember Scott wasn't even smoking, so he couldn't even blame it on like him being high or saying something stupid. And it was just like out of nowhere, he was like, one day I'm going to marry your daughter.
Whoa.
To my mom. And I was like, whoa, bro, you want me to fucking kiss you, but you're going to fucking marry me one day?
Did you say that?
No, but I was
How
just
did you
like,
react?
I was just like fucking flabbergasted.
Yeah,
I don't even think I said anything, honestly, because I was just like, I don't even know where this is coming from.
Yeah.
And then so like whatever, it was just like this weird moment, and I was just like, whatever, and like Scott's is whatever. So a couple days after that, we went on a weekend thing up north, up Northern California, and we were staying with Scott's parents the whole time. We were up there because he was from Petaluma, and I don't remember where both the shows were, but we just like drove back to Petaluma. But then the second show we were supposed to play ended up getting canceled. So we were like, let's just fucking party at Scott's parents' house. Because this is what we would always do when we go up there. His parents were like most hospitable people. They would like throw huge barbecues. Like when we came into town with Real Big Fish, they had a huge barbecue, invited Real Big Fish over. Like,
and they came?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
And or some of them, not all of them.
Yeah.
Some of them were really hungover still. But like this was always what we did. We like played beer pong in the backyard. Like it was like always like a home away from home, like in NorCal. And so we're like at his parents' house. We're all fucking around. And the first night, I always slept in the same room at his parents' house, which again was like a small room it was like the computer room, and it had one twin size bed in it. And that first night, that Friday, he like came knocking. But he has his own bed here. Like, he doesn't need to come sleep with me in a twin-size fucking bed. Yeah, he's got a room there still, even though he doesn't live there currently. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, what? And I was, like, reading. And I remember that specifically because it was, like, the only time in my life I was ever reading. And he came in, and he, like, got the computer chair, and he, like, pulled up, and he sat next to me, and he was like, hey, I want to talk to you. And I was like, okay, what's up? And he was just like, I feel like I'm putting like all this energy into our friendship. Like I'm always the one that like texts you, and like you don't make an effort like I do. And I was like so caught off guard because I didn't realize I was doing anything to upset him. I was like, oh my God, like I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
Would you say that's even accurate?
No, not necessarily. I mean, like, it's not like I was like ignoring his text or something, but I guess, yeah, he was always probably more so the one to initiate like hanging out. But like, I'm in this weird space where I'm like not
He kind of rejected you.
Yeah.
In some way. You're not going to like be.
Rejected me. And I was just like, okay, like we're still friends, like whatever. And then I was just like, oh, like, I'm sorry. Like, I'll work on it. Like, I really didn't know this was a problem. And I was glad that he came and talked to me about it. Like, he was always so good about that. He was always so open and honest with communication.
When he was willing to communicate.
When he was willing to communicate. That's a good point. His feelings, on the other hand.
Right.
Not necessarily. Yeah. Or romantic feelings, I guess. I don't know.
Well, those are always tricky.
Yeah. So I just, I was like, okay, whatever. And then it was like, that was it. Like, he left. I went to bed. And so the next day we're partying. We have a big barbecue and we're drinking all day. And then I remembered, I don't know, it was almost like, I can't imagine that we were the only two people still up, but it almost felt like that. Like we were like in our own world. And I remember like his parents were like asleep, and we were like, we had like found some weed and we were like gonna smoke it. And then he just like started smoking it in his bedroom. I was like, you're bad. And we were like running around his house, like just being like little kids, like just being ridiculous, just having the best time. We were like giggling and we're like, shh. And I was just like, shh, like that kind of shit.
Even though his parents don't even care what you're doing.
No, not real.
It's more like you don't want to wake everyone from being disturbed.
Exactly, yeah. And so I just remember us having like this really great time. And then it was like finally like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. All right, I'm gonna go to bed. And so I go into my respective room and go get in bed. And then it was probably like 5 or 10 minutes later, and here he is knocking on the door. But now I've got like the light off. Like I was actually like going to sleep. And he comes in and he climbs in the bed with me in this twin size bed. And we were just laying there like laughing about some stupid shit. And then it finally happened. I know. It finally happened. We didn't have sex, but like we finally kissed. We like made out, and then we're both like, I don't know about that.
I take back my clap. No,
No.
No, it's all good.
I was still a virgin at the time. So, but yeah. So it was like finally like this fucking magical moment. Like we finally kiss. And then whatever, we like hang out for a little while. He like lays there, whatever. And then he eventually like gets up because he was like going to fall asleep. And then he was like, I can't fall asleep in here.
There's no room.
And also like, he's like, I can't fall asleep in here because everybody's going to be like, why were you in the room with Karen?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, no, you need to go back to your bed. So the next day we're driving back. And I remember like we were sitting on one of the benches together. At the time, we had like moved our benches around in the bus a few times for whatever various reasons, just feng shui, I don't know. And one of our bench seats was like facing out the window. And I remember like being like on the 101 or like on the bridge, and like we had like a blanket. It was like September. You didn't need a blanket. But it was so that we could like hold hands underneath the blanket.
Look at you guys.
Knew and stuff like that. And then so like came back, and then we like, yeah, it was like secret like dating, like whatever. And this keeps happening with us like being romantic and like hanging out and whatever. But then not too long, I want to say it was like a month and a half after it all started, he was in another band. He was in a couple other bands, but the other band, because he would like tour with them too, but they like paid him. We didn't pay him. And so he was like, I got this like really big opportunity. Like I have to go play with them now, because he would like fill in for this other bigger guy every once in a while, but then they wanted him like as a permanent musician. And he was like making good money, playing gigs every day. And this guy like tours all the time. So he had to quit. He had to quit our band. And then it was like this like really hard thing because it was like, oh shit, like, well, we're not going to get to see each other now.
It stalls everything.
On tour, and now I don't have my best friend. And like, even while this is happening, like I'm super unhappy in my band. And I remember him and I were like taking some drive. He had to like go get something from someone far away. And we had taken this long drive, and I like broke down because I was like, I don't think I'm happy in this band, but I wasn't like ready to quit yet, because it was like my baby. I had started this thing for forever, and I still hadn't reached all the goals that I wanted to. And he was like, well, if you're not happy, like you should quit. But I just, I wasn't ready. And so, but he just decides, he's like, okay, well, now I'm leaving, so we're going to be best friends, okay? It wasn't like a mutual decision that we got to make together. He was like, this isn't going to happen anymore, but we're going to be best friends. Like forever. Like we'll be best friends. And I was just like, okay. And like, I'm like in love with him now. I'm like falling in love with him. And I was just like, yeah, okay.
I mean, that's also probably what he's telling himself.
Yeah.
And maybe hoping for, given the circumstance, but I don't know.
Yeah. And he was like, well, it just like, I don't want to date anyone long distance. And, like I'm going to be on the road and da. And he was definitely somebody who liked to sow his wild oats.
Sure.
And so I was just like, okay. And I was like crushed, and it was like super hard. And then like we were going on another tour. My band was, when he quit. And so he played, I think, like 3 dates on that tour with us because they were more local still. And then he could meet up with the other band before they left on their separate tour. So we went our separate ways. And it was like trying to savor those last few nights, and we go our separate ways. And then our first show after that was in Vegas. And my dad lives in Vegas. And I had a full-blown panic attack. I never had a panic attack before in my life. And I had to leave tour. It was like this crazy fucking thing. And I was like so overwhelmed and I didn't want to quit. And like, I literally had to take a flight back from Vegas back to Long Beach. Like, I was like so crippled.
Yeah, between losing him and not being happy in the band and being away from home, it was just too many things. Like, your body's probably almost like telling you, it's like a sign.
And then I didn't realize it until later, using his meditation book. There's this meditation in it called the 28-day removal of obstacles, which I actually just finished a cycle of it recently. But he, it turned out too, because I was like, why did I have this panic attack? My dad and my mom and my dad, you know, split up when I was really young. And I have like massive abandonment issues, you know, because of that. And so when Scott left me and I'm at my dad's house and there's this whole overwhelming like abandonment thing happening that I'm not in touch with because I wasn't aware of these things yet in my life, you know. So yeah, it was like a whole thing. And then there was all this animosity between my band towards me for like giving up and like quitting. And there just were like, you know, all kinds of things. I mean, I didn't quit the band, but I had to quit the tour. So then they had to keep doing the rest of the tour without their lead singer.
How did they do that?
They all like sang in together. Like they would like just scream the lyrics together.
Wow.
Because Megan also wasn't on that tour. And she always did all my harmonies. So she could have taken over, but she wasn't on that tour.
Oh, man.
Either. So they like, it was like a total like shit show tour. And then I just remember this is at the end of the year now. And then at the beginning of the year. So now I've been doing all these meditations. I went to a therapist. I like started like immediately like put myself in. Cause like the band's like, are you going to be good? Like I remember having a phone call with our manager. Our manager was like, I need you to promise me, Karen, that you're not going to leave. Like this is really important. And then this is all at the same time now that we've just gotten word that Victory Records wants to sign us. And I'm like promising, like, I'm not going to leave tour. Like, it's fine. Yeah, let's sign up for a fucking record deal for this band that I don't want to be in already anyway.
Oh, man.
And, but that was one of my goals with the band. Like, there were 3 things I always wanted to do. I wanted to tour the world, I wanted to get played on the radio, and I wanted to get a record deal. And then by the time I finally quit, I had accomplished all those things. So
That's
I was
awesome.
like, okay, cool. Like, it was finally like time. But that was a whole nother year later, you know, after this panic attack thing happened. So I went on, I think 5 more tours before I could finally quit. And Scott wasn't there. And it was just like, I was just like getting drunk like every night, like just to the point where like I could pass out. Because I was just like so uncomfortable being on tour. Like I was so out of place and, you know, just had a lot of anxiety. And he was still going on living his life. But this was the best part was that, I can't do a long distance relationship. Probably about a month after he had left, he got into a long distance relationship with some girl in Texas.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, we're best friends. We're fucking best friends.
Wow.
And so we see each other on, you know, passing when we're both like in town, whatever. And like now, when we're seeing each other, like I'm getting drunk, he's getting drunk, and we're fucking fighting.
Wow.
Like I'm pissed all the time, and like and then he's just like fighting with me, and because there's all these like
you're not even in a couple, and you're fighting.
We're fighting all the time, but it was realistically because we were denying ourselves of the emotions that we really wanted to have.
I can tell.
You know, and so it was just like this really like fucked up time period where, and we're like still best friends, and we're like, you know, he'll like call me, you know, swimming in Lake Tahoe, and I'm, you know, on a balcony in Hungary, and we're having like, oh, how's tour going? How's, you know, whatever, like these random conversations, whatever. So then I quit the band later, and, you know, in December of 2009, I played my last show actually at the House of Blues Anaheim with Real Big Fish. And then the band continued on. They got another lead singer after that. And she was in the band for 7 months, and I was in it for 7 years. And then they like fell apart after that. I'm not even gonna
Yeah.
I'm not even going to get into that.
I think you were maybe the better singer.
Yeah. And, well, there was something. It was our bass player. Well, our bass player and the new lead singer. They're on their fourth child.
Yeah, there was some nepotism or something, whatever you call it.
Yeah, they're married and they have their fourth child now, and so like it was weird. Apparently, it got a million times worse after I left the band, and everybody was already unhappy. Everybody in the band was unhappy, and but they just kept doing it because they were like, "Well, this is what we do."
Yeah.
And like now we're in this Victory Records, contract. And anyway, and so we only ever put out the one album on Victory. And then I quit, and then they never made another album. And then the band stayed together, for like another 7 months after I had quit. And Scott and I are still, just seeing each other here and there, whatever. It's still weird. I call it the weird space in between. Because I'm writing a solo album, actually, about this, where every song, it's a concept album, and every song is about a different time period in his and I's relationship.
It sounds like very complicated stuff.
And so then in 2011, everything's better now. We've just gotten used to the idea because he's on the road all the time, and I'm not living that life anymore. I'm acting now. I'm enrolled at Long Beach City College. I'm doing plays all the time, and I'm like the happiest I've ever been because I'm finally doing what I love. But so he and I were like, it was just like this comfortable place where it was like, okay, we're just friends now. Like I'm not even like trying to think about anything romantic, and it's like we're like living two different worlds, two different lives. But we would still talk, and I'd see him when he'd come into town. And like every time I'd see him, those feelings were still there. And it was like every time you'd see him, I would fall in love with him again. And it's like you just like forget, like over time, you're like, okay, well, like out of sight, out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
You're not like thinking about it. You're not seeing him. And then in 2011, I remember I was at the grocery store, because I was making like something special for dinner, and I needed like some sort of special ingredient. And he starts calling me, and I was like talking to Ralph's employee, and I was like, hey, like, let me call you back. And he was like, okay, well, call me back like right away though. And I was like, okay, yeah, for sure. I will. I'm just in the middle of something. I'll call you back. And so I hang up. I was like, whatever. And then so like I get whatever it was I was looking for. I go and I check out, but I had to go to the bank after that too, in the grocery store. And while I'm at the bank talking with the teller, he calls me again. And this has literally been like 3 or 4 minutes. Right. It has not been that long. I was like, I'll just wait. Because like my thought was like, I'll just wait until I leave the store on my walk home.
Yeah.
Because I'm almost done. And he goes, okay, like seriously though, you need to call me back because I have to call a bunch of other people and it's important. I was like, okay. And he was like, it's about my health. And I was like, what? And that was when I was like, yeah, I'll call you right back. And so I hung up. It was like maybe 30 seconds, a minute later. I called him back. And then he was just like, so, and I remember the way he said it, it was just like more nonchalant than anything, where he was like, so, like I hadn't been feeling well. I remember I had told you about like, I was having like, like stomach issues, whatever, and like going to the bathroom. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, so I have colon cancer.
Wow.
And I was just like, what? He's 27. He's 27.
Yeah, that's not
old
common with
at the time.
Younger.
No. And it doesn't run in his family. He doesn't have a history of this in his family. He doesn't have a history of cancer at all in his family. This isn't something that he should have been screening for.
Right.
But the worst part is that, and I just have to say this, fuck Kaiser. Fuck fucking Kaiser. 1,000,000 times, because 6 months before this, before he was finally diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer at 27 years old, he went to them and he said, hey, I want to have a colonoscopy done. And they refused to because he was too young. And if they had done it, then they could have saved his life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did his family ever pursue any litigation or anything like that?
No.
Are they going to after this podcast?
No, because, well, it turns out, there was a cluster and there were, I think, like 7 or 8 other people, all within the same age range who all got colon cancer and died the same year that he did. And all in Petaluma and in Sonoma County. And it was, they think it was something in the water. But they still have never proven what it was.
Wow.
And like his parents don't want to get involved with that either. Because, I mean, like, and I get it. Like, when he was gone, they were just so devastated. And it's like, you just like are trying to move on. And it's like, you're never going to move on if you're in litigation or you're trying to fucking do this for years. Like, there's so much
reliving you're reliving the situation.
That keeps going, you know?
Yeah,
and
it's not fun.
Yeah, and his parents definitely didn't want to do that, you know? And I don't blame them. Like, honestly, I definitely don't blame them.
Yeah, you can't judge people, and that's not judging it, but like that's totally up to whatever people you support, whatever people want to do.
I mean, if it were up to me, I probably would have, but I didn't have the right to make that decision.
Yeah, and when you're in the situation, you know, who knows what decision you make.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Yeah. I mean, what do you even say to that? I'm just going to let you tell the story.
Yeah. So he finds out he has stage 4 colon cancer, and I was just like, he was like, it's chill though. I got this. And I was like, we're going to beat this. You got this. Like, okay, what's the course of action? Like, what's the plan? What's the plan, man? You know, like, whatever. And this is like literally like on my like 4-minute walk back from the store over to my mom's house, back where I'm going. And I get back to my mom's house, and you know, my mom.
Are you already in tears, like at this point, or no? Like you're just.
I remembered tearing up, but I didn't cry because I was trying to be strong for him.
Sure.
And I was like, no, this is like, we got to be positive.
Especially when he's being positive on the other end of the line.
I was like, no, I'm not even going to do anything negative. I'm not going to think anything negative. Like, I immediately teared up when he told me this, but I didn't want him to know that I was crying.
Sure.
So, like, I wasn't like, so I just like choked it up, and I was just like, no, like, it's fine. We got this. And so I get back to my mom's house. And like, obviously my mom and my brother both know him very well. My brother spent many tours with him as well as our tour manager. And I tell my mom this, which by the way, my mom is an oncology RN, you know, a cancer nurse. And so I was like, so Scott just called me and he told me that he has stage 4 colon cancer. But I'm like, but it's like chill. And my mom just goes, oh my God, Karen, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, but like, it's going to be fine. Like, it's going to be
stage 4. That sounds like a late stage.
Yeah. There's only 5 stages.
Oh man.
Yeah. And so stage 4 odds of any sort of cancer, you know, beating it is, I don't even know the odds, but it's probably somewhere like 75 to 80% that you're not going to make it. Yeah. Probably somewhere around there. And if I were to guess, but every cancer is different too. Some are more treatable than others. And depending on the patient too, because he was so young and healthy, like he was very fit, and he like took a lot of pride in eating right and working out. Like we used to always tease him. He was
he played tennis. I read the bio.
In high school. Oh my God, I forgot about that. No, he didn't like play. Like we did play tennis once. I remember that, yeah. But it was mostly just to escape this crazy girl we were staying with on tour. But no, but like he would like work out every day. Like he'd bring like resistance bands on tours, and we would make fun of him. But he was like always like about like, because he had been like chubby when he was younger, yeah. And he had like worked really hard to like take care of himself because the rest of his family was like really overweight. Yeah. And so he was like, I don't want to be like that. I want to be healthy. So he like always was really adamant about taking care of himself. And so it was just like, this person, you know, got colon cancer, you know, and on top of it, but it was just like, okay, so he's young, he's healthy, he has better odds of beating it. Like there are things in his favor. But my mom was like, you know, I mean, bless her heart, she's just trying to be
realistic,
like,
yeah.
Brace me. But she was like, Karen, he's not going to make it. And this is like right when I told her that he's going to have that he has cancer. And I was like, you don't fucking know.
Right.
And that was when I lost it, where I was like, how dare you?
Yeah.
You don't know. And
she shouldn't have phrased it like that.
She shouldn't. Yeah.
Even if she believed that to be the case.
But, you know, she's also a medical professional where, like, she's used to dealing with this all the time.
Mom, I don't want doctor talk. I want mom.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you shouldn't be saying that to your own daughter. But, you know, it's just, like, this habit of, like, what you do. And yeah, and then that was when I was really, like tears. I was like, oh, no. And then so he started treatment like right away. I think it was like a day or two afterwards. And a week after He started treatment. He decides, I'm going to start a charity that that like raises awareness, on cancer, and like it was called Unified to Thrive. Because the
Called
band
Shut Down Kaiser.
yeah, seriously. The band he was in at the time was called Thrive. And so it ended up being like an offshoot of a thing that he did with the band too. And like they made all these like merch and like wristbands and all kinds of things where like all the profits, all the proceeds, which I didn't agree with, but went to St. Jude's. And I don't agree with it because St. Jude's allocates their money incorrectly and uses a good portion of it for things that they're not supposed to use it for. But
CEO salaries?
Yeah. And but anyway, but he was like, I want to help kids with cancer. So he just went with St. Jude's. And it was just like this amazing thing where he took something so scary and so negative and he was like, no, like I'm gonna make this a really positive thing for other people. And then it was like, and he had been like definitely like he was not, nobody's a perfect person, but he definitely had some like worse traits sometimes where he could be really selfish and just not very thoughtful about things and other people's feelings or things like that. And when he got cancer, it was like he finally started becoming the person he was like always meant to be, like the best version of himself, where he like, it was like things were put more in perspective and then he started caring more.
Yeah.
And, and then like giving back and all these kinds of things, but still maintained his positive attitude because he was always, even if he could be selfish at times, he was always super positive and super inspiring. Like he was just this like light to be around. And everyone who met him just like loved him because he was just...
You did.
Yeah, I definitely did. I loved him more than some people did, though.
Yeah.
I'm sure I know I'm not the only one, but definitely more than some other people did. But so he, I mean, he really took this thing and ran with it and like started this charity. I mean, and he like made sure that he did it like all legit and like, got all the paperwork done and like made it a huge thing. And it like really took off and he raised like a lot of money for St. Jude.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then the band continued it for a little while. It's still technically around, but they don't do an awful lot with it because actually the guy who he passed it off to before he passed away was the bass player at the time who's not in the band anymore. Yeah. So it's kind of like fallen a little bit by the wayside. But yeah. So then he like fought for a long time, for 2 years. And in that time period, there were a lot of things that happened, between him and I, where like all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, we're friends, but then those feelings were back again. And like, there was just like a lot of unresolved things between us. And like, we had still, I wasn't a virgin at this time, but I'd still never had sex with him.
Yeah.
And so we managed to do that eventually. Yeah, finally, just once, but it was the best story. Was the best story. We had sex behind an AutoZone next to the dumpster. Not in a car, not standing up, on the floor next to the dumpster behind an AutoZone.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, he doesn't care. What does he got to lose?
Yeah, exactly. That was very true.
That's awesome, by the way. I'm looking at the time, I know to make note of this in the social media and the liner notes and the episode description.
So we finally had that moment, and this was the February before he passed away. He passed away in December. It was on Super Bowl Sunday, actually, and like, whatever.
Wait, this was when before he passed away?
This was in February, so he died in December. So this is the beginning of 2013.
So the AutoZone encounter was
in February of 2013.
And he passed away in
December of 2013.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So 11 months or whatever.
Yeah, but he was still like really healthy at the time. And actually at one point he had gone into remission. It was probably about a year into him fighting the cancer. And then like a month later it came back.
Damn.
And it's like the saddest when I come across like the Facebook post of when he went into remission. And I was like, and I like made this post where I'm like, I'm so proud of you. Like, you fucking did this, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, everyone like applaud for him. And then a month later it came back.
Well, I mean,
it is what it is. Yeah, it does what it does.
I mean, no one's going to regret being supportive, obviously.
No,
saying
of course.
That, but yeah, it's tragic.
The tragedy.
It's
of
tragic.
Like, seeing that, and you're like, oh man, that's right. But yeah, so he was still like healthy enough. We had sex, whatever, this February, and then he like left the next day. He was like gone again on a tour. And at the time he was like living up in NorCal though. So like he was still touring and stuff, but he would like come into town in Long Beach. And I would go up there and I would see him and stuff like that. And, but then in May of 2013, he had contacted me and he was like, hey, I'm coming into town, with the band, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, you want to hang out this day? Like, whatever. And so I like went and picked him up from Kaiser because he I met him like up with his band. And then I went and I took him to Kaiser because he had an appointment. Because he had this is so funny, because he had sex with some girl. He was always very adamant about wearing condoms. He was super good about that. And he had sex with this girl, and he was worried about like this bump that he had.
He has stage 4 cancer.
And he's worried about an STD.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't want more than you don't want to deal with more than you're already dealing with.
Yeah, and so that was why he went to Kaiser. It wasn't even like anything related to the cancer, so it was like a quick appointment and shit. And it was one of those things too, like when there was always like, I knew how much I loved him because every time he'd walk through a door, it's like you knew he was in the next room. It didn't matter. He'd walk through the door and your heart would like, like skip a beat. Like you just, like there was just, I don't know. There's always something really special. And
I can tell just the way you're looking. Yeah. You look when you're talking about this.
And so I even remembered like that moment when he like came out from like being in the back with the doctor that day. And I was just like, fuck. And it was like that same thing that happened, and I'm like, oh God, like, it's May of 2013. Like, I shouldn't still be having like these feelings,
I know. Yeah.
Even though like the last time we had seen each other, we had sex, but it was like 3 months before, and it was like, whatever, we're still just best friends, like whatever. And like, I'm taking him to like get this checkup because he had sex with some other girl that he was dating. He was actually currently dating this girl.
Look at this guy.
And I was just like
making the most of his time.
Yeah, he always did. And then we like went around, we did a few other things, and then we had the option of like going and meeting up with his band, but then we just took too long. And then so I took him out to his show, which he was playing out in Fullerton that night at the Slide Bar, and he was like, oh, like you should come back for the show later, like I'll get you in, like I'll buy you a drink, and like whatever. And I was like, yeah, totally. But I like hated the Slide Bar. Now I go there all the time, but I hated the Slide Bar at the time. And I was like, I do not want to go back to the fucking Slide Bar. And also it was the same night of the Office series finale that this happened. So I was like, no, fucking Office is on. And I had like already promised I was going to go pick up sandwiches for the family and like go back and like watch The Office. And I was like, yeah, like maybe I'll come back, like, no, I'm not going to. And we had pulled into the parking lot and he's sitting in my car and he's just not saying anything. And I was like, okay, is he gonna fucking get out? I was just like, what is he doing? And it was just like silent and weird. And then he just all of a sudden goes, I love you. And I was like, like I was not expecting this.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything. Even though I knew I loved him back.
You were probably caught off guard.
I was caught off guard, but also in my mind at the time, this is so terrible, but this is fucking true. I said, finally. And like, he knows that I love him and that I've always loved him. And like, after all the pain that he put me through those years ago, I was like, I want him to feel the pain that I felt for like a second of like how that fucking feels to be rejected. And like, let down, you know? And then it was just like another few like seconds of just silence. And then he finally gets out. And I like pop the trunk and get his saxophone. And I'm like, okay, bye. Like, and then I like drive back. And I remembered, this is so fucked up. I remembered laughing. I laughed out loud because I was like, now I finally got mine. Now he knows what it fucking feels like.
Well, you know what? I mean, he's dealing with the illness and all that, and
Yeah.
you're not treating him less than, you're treating them the same as you would in that situation, for better
Yeah.
or worse, you know, if he wasn't sick or not. So he should appreciate it. Like,
Yeah.
so you are, you know, maybe if you said I love you, maybe he would think that's a pity I love you or something like that.
I don't think so. Because he knew, like, we always knew that we loved each other. But this was the first time he had ever said it.
Sure.
And it wasn't like a, man, I love you, like, best friend. It was like, no, like, this is it. I'm finally fucking saying
Yeah, I can tell by the way you
you
reenacted it.
And because it was just like such a strange, and I was just like, oh, fuck, okay. And like literally, like, I am not a person who regrets many things because I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. But that is the one thing I have regretted in my life, is that I didn't say it back. I mean, I did later after that, but not then when it happened. Because I'm like, and you know, you were like, what about the what ifs? Like,
when did you say it?
When I went to say goodbye to him, when he was dying. That was like really the only time in person I ever said it out loud.
Was he able to?
Yeah.
All right, so that counts. You're good.
Oh yeah. No.
You
He
said it
said it
back.
back. Like, we both said it, and like it, you know. But that was also like the very last time.
Well,
like,
you
I
made
knew I
him.
was ever
You
gonna
made
see
him just wait for it a little bit.
I did.
You said I love you back. You just made him wait for it.
Yeah. He made me wait for it for fucking years because I had been waiting years for that. And then so
this is still unresolved.
Mm-hmm. And then
maybe in the afterlife you guys can.
I know, right?
See a therapist in the afterworld together and work it out.
I know, right? And then
Get the band back together.
Yeah, never. Maybe us, but not
Different band.
Yeah, different band. We'll start a new band. But then and then I didn't go back. I didn't see him again. And then about a month after that, he came back into town again, and his band played a show with my Long Beach improv group at D Piazza's, at the same venue where he had brought his ex-girlfriend many years before. And it was like right around his birthday. It was the night before his birthday, I think. And so we just had like a really great time, and we were all just like fucking around and like whatever. And it was just like us being best friends again and like whatever. And, but that was like the last time I ever saw him when he was healthy. And the next day, which my brother didn't tell me until after he died, I never knew this, but the next day my brother I had like a job or something, and my brother actually had taken him to meet up with his band. So he came over and he stayed at my mom's house, and he slept with me. And that was like the last time, we didn't have sex, but he slept in the bed. Like, you know, he used to always. And that was, you know, the last time we ever shared a bed together. But he had told my brother, when my brother dropped him off, it was like this really weird thing. So my brother dropped him off, and like when he was with my brother, he was like, man, and like he was never this person who would get like nostalgic or like talk about things or like regrets or anything like that. He was not that person. He never lived in regret. And he goes, you know, man, like I've been with like a lot of girls, and I've dated a lot of girls over the years, but there was always the one I was supposed to be with, and now it's too late. And my brother was like, the fuck, man? Because like he knew he was talking about me, you know? And then so like he like got out of the car, like left and went to the band, and then my brother like had this overwhelming feeling, like they had like hugged, but then my brother had this like overwhelming feeling where he like stopped his car and pulled over and ran back out and hugged him again. And he didn't know why, but that was the last time he ever saw him, you know? So it was like this weird thing.
Yeah.
He just like felt compelled that he needed to go hug him again. And then
maybe your brother appreciated that on your behalf.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because, like, and I was like, why didn't you tell me that sooner? Like, he was like, I don't know, honestly, I didn't even remember it until now, you know, like after he had died. And then, so that was in June. And then in September, I remember, you know, we talked still, but I didn't see him because now at this point, he can't tour anymore. And in September, I remember having this really weird conversation with him. And I felt like he had called me to talk to me about something, but I was like, oh yeah, like I'm going on a date later and da 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 da. And I think he was like, I don't want to ruin her day. And so he just never got to the point of what he had called me about. So it just ended up being this like random conversation. And it seemed so odd. And I remember, and then he like said a lot of really weird things and asked me like strange things. And one of the first things he asked me, he goes, so are you pregnant? And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, like you got to be pretty pregnant by now, right? And I was like, oh yeah, haha, like, except I got rid of the baby, you know, like whatever, you know. And he was referring back to like when we had sex in February.
Yeah.
And we were both really drunk when it had happened. And again, back to like, he always used a condom, was like super adamant about using a condom. I remembered because he had started trying to have sex with me at like the people's house we were at before we ended up at the AutoZone. And I was like, no, because like everyone's asleep. Like, let's just go. But when it started happening, he like went to go inside of me without a condom. And I was like, well, bro, do you have a condom? Because he had gotten mad at me because I had had unprotected sex with other people. And he was like, don't be fucking stupid. So I was like, yo, bro, like you need a condom. You know, I was like, yeah, like trying to be like, aren't you proud of me? Because like I'm carrying condoms with me now, you know? And then so like we go to the AutoZone, whatever.
I gotta visit this. There should be a monument or something.
Really, it's a historic landmark.
Field trip.
But he, it's funny, I actually live right around the corner from it now. But he, I remembered after we had sex, you know, very drunkenly, like looking on the floor, and the condom was there and it was like ripped open, like out of the wrapper. But I don't think he ever put it on. And so I was like the one person that he ever had unprotected sex with, and he was trying to get me pregnant.
Because he wanted to go for the legacy?
And I didn't know, but he was sterile. He had had so much chemo and radiation at this point that he was sterile anyway. But he was still like, fingers crossed, like it's worth a shot. But it didn't take, and I was on birth control anyway, so it didn't matter. Like I wouldn't have gotten pregnant. But because like when he first went in for chemo and radiation, you know, he took a sperm sample and he had it like saved in case he was going to have a family later. And I'm sure it's probably destroyed now, but there was like a while that I was like, should I like talk to his parents about getting it?
Well, maybe they're listening. You know, and let you know if it's still available.
No, but now I'm like, I don't think I ever want to have kids. But
I'll check their freezer next time you're over there.
Yeah,
see what's in there.
Yeah, it's just in their freezer.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah. So I think on that phone call, he was trying to tell me how sick he was, and that he was like really dying. But he never got to tell me that. So he just like hid that.
Well, that's a hard thing to bring up.
Yeah. And he hid it from me for a while. And then it was like in December, I knew something was wrong. And he had said like things were getting worse. And it was funny. He got to play a show with Les and Jake. We managed to set this whole thing up where he got to go play saxophone with them. It was, I want to say like a month before he died. It was on my brother's birthday. Yeah. So it was November 29th. And he died on December 28th. So it was almost exactly a month. And it wasn't until I like saw video footage from it that I was like, oh my God. Because I hadn't seen him. And he wasn't telling me what was going on. He was lying to me about all this stuff. Like saying everything was fine. But he was not himself anymore. And he was so ill that the thing he'd done all of his life, playing saxophone, thing that he loved the most, he could barely do.
Yeah.
And it was like it was the hardest thing ever for him to get through one song, you know, playing with his idols. And it was so funny because he had contacted me to help him do it. And he was like, my Make-A-Wish. And I was like, you can't call it Make-A-Wish. You're fucking 29, dude. You don't get a Make-A-Wish. You're not a child.
Yeah. Everyone should have a Make-A-Wish.
Yeah, but he kept calling it his Make-A-Wish. And I'm like, you're 29.
Yeah.
And anyway, and then so it was probably about like a week or two later that he was like, hey, because I had kept saying like, hey, can I come see you? Can I come see you? And he was like, no. And then finally, like a week or two later, he was like, yeah, okay, you need to come now. And I was like, okay. And I was just like, thanks for finally letting me fucking see you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
And
doesn't
I
want to
didn't
see
realize.
Yeah, he doesn't want you to see him at his worst. He
No.
wants you to remember him at his best. But he
Exactly.
still also wants to
Say goodbye.
Of course.
And so on December 16th, I drove up to NorCal. I drove all the way there one day, stayed the night, and drove all the way back the next day. And I took a friend with me, and I'm really glad that I did, that I had somebody else there. She didn't come with me to his house, but like we were staying with like her friends in San Francisco, and then I drove out of the city and went and out over there. And it wasn't until, that I walked in, and it was just a surreal thing of like walking into his parents' home that I'd been in so many times before. We've had so many fun memories and just so many moments and great times.
Yeah.
And there was always this wonderful energy. And now it's like this somber thing. And I had no idea until I come into the living room, that I've stepped into a million times. I turn the corner and he's laying in his hospital bed in the living room. And no one told me this.
Yeah.
No one prepared me for this. And so I was like, and I wanted to weep.
Right.
And I couldn't, because I was like, I have to be strong for him. But I was not expecting this. Like, no one could anticipate. And he was a shell of who he was.
Sure.
Before. He was not the same person at all, And then I had to go and sit in a chair, like, right next to him. I made sure that I sat in a chair next to him because I wasn't ready to look at him yet. And because I was just so overwhelmed. And then I remember, like, his brother and I, like, we went and smoked a cigarette. And Scott hated that I smoked cigarettes. And I had quit for a long time. And
You needed one.
I had been quit before, but I had started smoking probably about a month before because I knew things weren't going well. And he tried to get mad with me, and I was like, I need to go smoke a cigarette. And he was like, you're fucking doing that shit again? And I was like, yeah, bro, sorry, but like, I need it. And he was like, it was the one time that he was just like, yeah, fair enough. Like, that's fine. Like, you smoke as long as you need to.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Again, it's like you're just being yourself in the moment. I think he appreciated that versus, again, like taking pity on him. Oh, I don't want to upset the sick person, so I won't do something that I really want to do.
Yeah.
Just for him. But you were like, no, fuck that. Even you're telling me not to. I'm not gonna listen to you.
Yeah, no, I'm fucking doing this. And then, like, luckily too, his mom had like a couple of her coworkers who came over like for a short period of time when, like, right when I had gotten there too. So they were like a buffer where they were able to like chat with him and stuff. And then like I was able to just calm down and like assess the fucking situation because I had no idea what I was walking into.
Right.
And I was just able to like compose myself, like whatever. And then so they left, and then I was able to spend some time with them. And it was funny because his like brother like wouldn't take the hint. We were like, why don't you go do this? So we could like spend time together, and we finally got rid of him. But like at one point he wanted some stuff from the grocery store, and I was like, somebody else was trying to go do it. Like, I think his mom. And I was like, no, I'll go do it. Because I needed to cry. I needed to leave and cry.
Sure, you needed
like
that release.
I didn't want to, and I didn't want to cry in front of him because like I was just trying to be strong for him. And like that was one thing too, is I guess apparently he said that people can come over and see him as long as they didn't cry. He didn't want people crying.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, like, and I knew that going into it, but he didn't tell me that. Somebody else, I think his mom again had like told me that. Somebody had told me that he didn't want people crying, and I was like, all right. And so like I went and I like called my mom, and I'm like sobbing at the grocery store, like buying him like a Stouffer's lasagna. And I like come back, whatever. We get to like spend time together, and and I finally like I start crying at some point, and I'm like trying to hold in, and I was like, I'm sorry. I know you didn't want people crying. And he was like, no, Karen, like, and it was like he wanted to say something else, but he was like, no, like, you can cry. Like, I'll allow you to cry.
Yeah, because it's an expression of how much you feel for him.
Yeah, and he was just like, he was just like, it's good for you.
It's
good for you. I remember that. He was like, it's good for you. Like, you should cry. And I was like, cool, asshole. And, but like, it wasn't like he meant it like that, but it was really funny the way he said it,
Yeah, that's funny.
And it was just like, just this weird, surreal experience of, like you're like having the last conversations with the first and only person that you'd ever loved at this point. And you're like, this is the last time I'm ever going to see them. Like, having to say goodbye to them. But like, he's so weak. It's like, you can't like hold him. You can't like, and I was sick. I was super sick at the time too. So I didn't want to get too close to him because I'm like, I don't want to be the thing that kills him. His immune system is so broken down. But like, my immune system had been so broken down from this whole experience that like I had gotten sick and then drove all the way to San Francisco sick, all the way back sick, but like I needed to see him. And so like I didn't want to get too close. And he was like, I don't give a fuck, and I was just like, all right. And like made him like his Stouffer's lasagna and like had to feed him. And, it was just like a crazy, crazy experience. And then like he started getting regretful and he was like trying to apologize to me for all the things that he had done. And then
about time.
Yeah. Right. And like part of me was like, okay, well, good. Like, I'm glad that he like knows like that he hurt me and like that like I meant a lot to him too, obviously. But I was like, no, you're not gonna be sorry. I don't want you. Yeah. Like, I was like, it's okay. Everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. And he was like, I know, but I just can't help that things should have been different between you and me. And I was like, no, like, it is what it is.
But you must have appreciated that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He just didn't have to. There's no need to go on and on.
Yeah, and I
can see you're genuine.
Yeah, and I just didn't want him to like die with regret. I was like, please don't feel regret over this. Like,
well, he would regret not telling you about his regrets. Mm-hmm. Boom.
That's true. That's very true. So it was
4D chess.
Yeah. It was important for him to get it off his chest.
Yeah.
But and then we're finally able to say, I love you, and then I remember. I wasn't prepared for it. I had all my stuff back at the house I was staying at. And then when I was like going to be getting ready to leave, he was like, why don't you just stay here? You can stay here overnight. You can stay. And I thought about it for a minute and I was like, oh, one last night of like getting, not like I'd be able to sleep with him in his bed, but like of just getting to be near him.
Right.
But then I thought, and I was like, I can't wake up in the morning and do this all over again.
Yeah, no.
I couldn't do it. So I was like, and like all my stuff was back with my friend and like her stuff was in my trunk. So I was like, fuck, I have to go back because all of her stuff was in my trunk. So I was like, I can't, but it was better. Like I thought about it and I was like, I can't get up and say goodbye all over again in the morning.
Right.
Like I can't.
It seemed like you were ending on sort of a high note with some closure and
trying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the best you could.
Yeah. And then I left and then I texted him because he had gotten to the point where he was so weak he couldn't even text anymore. And because before he had gotten to a point where he couldn't talk on the phone anymore because he was so weak. And then he couldn't text anymore. And then on Christmas, which was just 3 days before he died, I just texted him saying, Merry Christmas. Like, whatever. And then he actually, I didn't think I was even going to get a response. And he just responded, love you. And then
wow,
that was the last time I ever talked to him.
Wow.
So
that's quite a story.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is there to say? Have you ever told that whole story in that amount of detail to anyone? Like,
not on a podcast.
Not on a podcast. Maybe in bits and pieces to people.
Well, and like I said, I'm working on my solo album and where it's about him. And so the guy that I'm working on the album with, he knows the whole story because I've had to divulge all this with him. Because like I said, each song is like about a different time period in our relationship together, our friendship, our romantic relationship, whatever, over time. And so it's all about a feeling. Like there's not like a specific genre throughout the whole album. It's like every song is its specific feeling.
Gotcha.
And like trying to create those feelings that were happening.
And whatever genre type of music suits that feeling is the direction you're gonna.
And so like the guy who I'm working on, Andrew is his name, who I'm working on my album with, he's amazing. And he really like understands like the emotional depth that needs to happen. And so I've been very open with him about like, this is what happened here in this song. These are the emotions that were happening, you know, so he's probably the one who knows the most about it.
Gotcha.
I'd say like my girlfriend, my best friend who's a girl, because I have two best friends, one's a guy and one's a girl. She lost her first love when we were in high school. He died. Accident in the Marines, actually. It was terrible. But so she was like she was like one of the only other people that I knew who had lost somebody at the same capacity at the same age. Because like that's the really hard thing, is like going through grief for something like that at the age I was at, because nobody else understands.
Right.
Nobody gets that. And they just thought, like, even my male best friend, and I'm not like trying to say this to like make him seem like a bad person, because it's just like people who don't go through that kind of grief, they don't understand. And it was a year after he died, only a year. It was almost exactly, because it was on Christmas Day.
Right.
So it was like just about to be the very first anniversary of his death. And we were like super drunk on Christmas at my mom's house. And I started getting emotional about it with my girl best friend, who was also there, because all three of us are collectively best friends. And Matt, he goes, "Why don't you just get over it already?"
No, you don't want to say that.
But people don't understand, you know? And like, that's the thing, is that it sounds insensitive, but it's like, they just, you know, it's like, oh, if it's a grandparent, you know? Because like at that point.
Yeah, that's not the right way.
No. Again, he was also very drunk.
I see.
Yeah. And like not good with emotions.
Words or emotions.
Yeah. So.
He's trying.
Yeah. No, he did. And he definitely, we didn't end up talking for like a month and a half after that. It was the longest we ever went in our entire lives without talking. And then he finally came around and apologized. And, you know, because he knew what he had said was really wrong. But yeah, so now it's like 5.5 years later, and I finally worked through, like, there's always that grief that's there, because there's always that loss, but like, I'll always miss him and I'll always love him. But now I'm living again. Right.
You're able to not let
the
past consume you.
Yeah.
But also appreciate.
And it's not
past.
like this heavy cloud of grief that follows you around too, because it's crippling. It really is. And like, I was 25 when he died. You know, like, quarter life crisis, like, that's not something that you expect. Like, I'm trying to like start my career and like work towards my dreams, and then the man that I thought I was going to marry died. And it's just like everything that I thought was going to happen was gone.
Right.
You know, like this idea that you had in your mind of all these years of like, oh, that we're going to end up together. Like, this is going to be a thing eventually. Like, we had always, it's just over. So then it's like, you start doubting all these other things where you're like, well, if anything like that can disappear that quickly, like, what the fuck is the point of trying for anything?
It's this catch-22. Yeah. That's tough to
So like, I
get
put
around.
Like, my happiness and like my career on hold. Like, I stopped acting, and you know, and now I'm back doing all of that stuff.
No, that's great.
And I'm like amazingly happy, and I know how proud of me he is, you know, and I'm super proud of myself.
No, you should be. You've been through a lot. Oh my goodness. So why don't you tell me? I mean, I think I'm going to have you back at some point to talk more about comedy and acting.
I know. It's like so heavy, but
yeah, no, that's great. So, but you can tell me like what you're working on these days, how people can follow you. I know this wasn't the most necessarily comedy centric, sketch comedy centric conversation. Right. But we can.
I do drama too.
Yeah,
you know, I'm not just comedy. I'm working on a mini series about this too. You know, so like I'm always, you know, you try and use these things for creativity.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Turn it into something fruitful. It doesn't have to be this devastating thing.
Sharing your story might entertain, might help someone else.
Yeah. Like that's
make you some money.
Yeah.
Turn it all.
Always making money would be great. But like just even being able to be there and inspire somebody else who's maybe gone through something similar, they know that there's like
I don't think anyone's been through quite what you described.
maybe not exactly that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's a very complicated relationship.
Yeah.
But like that kind of loss. But yes, so I'm in two improv and sketch comedy groups. One in Long Beach called Fistful of Improv, and we have a residency at the Long Beach Playhouse. We perform there like every 6 weeks, and our social media is not very active, so I won't even pump that. And then,
but what about yourself?
Myself? Oh well, I was gonna say Pin Up Squirrels too.
Mm-hmm.
Pin Up Squirrels is my LA group, all girls. We have a UCB show once a month, the third Saturday of the month. Although that's probably going to be changing this month. We just applied for it's like every 6 months they re-up and they change the dates.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like at Pin Up Squirrels. Look up Pin Up Squirrels on Facebook. Me personally, my Instagram handle is stupid.
I think I saw it.
I've been meaning to change it. I'm going to change it soon, so I don't know if I even want to pump it, but like it's at You Know You Lived It Well with a bunch of periods in there. It's dumb. It needs to say my name in it, so I'm working on it. I'm trying to find like the best new name. It's probably just going to be like Karen Roberts Official or something like that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, why not?
We'll get there. We're all working on it.
Whatever. Yeah, because unfortunately, there's a million other Karen Roberts in this world.
Right. Took me a minute to find you.
Yeah. So good luck if you want to find me on Instagram and Facebook, the same thing. Just search Karen Roberts until you find a sassy redhead.
I'll find it.
Yeah. And, we're already Facebook.
That's
friends,
true.
So we're good. And then I'm in 2 bands, Unicorn Injection at Unicorn Injection Band on Instagram, and then Unicorn Injection on Facebook. And
that's your ska punk band.
That's my ska.
I did my research. Look at me.
We're more so pop punk. We have a little bit of ska flair. We don't have horns.
Pop punk. That's what I meant.
Yeah, and but we do have some ska. We have like upstrucking of the guitar, but we're only a 4-piece. We're all girl. And then, but we mostly just use it as an excuse to get drunk and shoot off confetti cannons and wear wigs. And
sounds good.
Be dumb, just have a good time. And then my other band is a 90s cover band, Star 69, a callback to the 90s. And it's at Star 69 and Star 69 callbacks to the 90s on both platforms. But not the asterisk, because you can't make that into your stupid username. So it's the word star, which drives me nuts. But
yeah. I'll talk to some people about that.
I know, right? I hate that. I hate that I can't put an asterisk, or like in a hashtag, I can't put an asterisk. I'm like, but it's Star 69.
I find when I want to like say episode number 29 or whatever, I write out the word number, because otherwise they'll think I'm doing a hashtag if I put pound or 29.
Yeah,
so I always write out like number 29, NUMBR.
So confusing.
Anyway, we've been talking for quite some time, so I'm going to let you... No, don't apologize. That's a fucking incredible story that you shared, for sure. But again, I appreciate you sharing it with me and coming by the studio, and I look forward to seeing more. Oh, you got it. More comedy, more music.
Yeah.
I'm going to see all your bands, all your sketch shows.
For sure.
Plenty of stuff upcoming. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Karen Roberts. So there you have it. My conversation with Karen Roberts. Wow. What is there even to say after that? I don't know what to say. Just that I really appreciate Karen taking the time to share her story with me and her story with Scott. She was so honest, vulnerable, and just real. Life is hard and unfair and can be fragile and painful and tragic. You got to be lucky in this world, man. But anyway, peoplewelovepodcast.com. Go there and click on things. Yeah, I think I'm done. Y'all be safe and appreciate each other out there. Peace.